Today, we're going to tackle a really big question. What actually happens to an economy when a government slashes its payroll? We're going to dig into the surprising hidden consequences of all this by learning how to see what's normally invisible. Okay, so let's set the scene. Imagine this. A massive war has just ended. Millions of soldiers are about to come home. The headlines are screaming about a potential unemployment crisis. I mean, it sounds like an economic disaster in the making, right? Well, that's the very idea we're going to challenge today. So what's really behind this fear? It's kind of a paradox, isn't it? We're relieved the war is over, of course, but at the same time, we're terrified of what it means for the economy. And this anxiety, it really stems from a very common and very human mistake in how we look at the whole economic machine. Here's the fear, laid bare. You see millions of people suddenly turned loose on the labor market. And the immediate question is, where are the jobs going to come from? Where's the money to hire them? All we see is them losing their government paychecks, their purchasing power, and it looks like a huge, undeniable loss for everybody. You see, this fear is rooted in a fundamental economic fallacy. And that's the mistake of looking at only one side of the process. It's all about focusing on what's immediately visible while completely ignoring the other, equally important side of the equation. So let's pull back the curtain and take a look at this tale of two economies, the one we all see and the one that's usually hidden from view. And this is where it gets really interesting. On the one hand, we have what is seen. It's the obvious stuff. Soldiers are no longer supported by the government. Government spending appears to drop. It looks like a clear loss. But on the other hand, you have what's unseen. The taxpayers who were funding those soldiers now get to keep that money. And that money doesn't just vanish, it gets spent, fueling a whole new rise in civilian demand. So how exactly does this unseen money create new jobs? Well, it all comes down to the role of the taxpayer. Let's trace the journey of that money for a second. Okay, so follow the money with me. First, the government stops paying the soldier. That means it no longer needs to collect that money in taxes. That money now stays with the taxpayer, who can then spend it on things they actually want or need. A new car, maybe some home repairs, you name it. And here's the crucial final step. This new private spending creates demand, which in turn creates brand new jobs for those very same former soldiers. So here's the really important part. The economy doesn't just break even. The nation is actually better off. Why? Because those former soldiers are now productive, self-supporting civilians. They're creating goods and services of equivalent value, not just consuming tax dollars. The nation's total production literally increases. All right, that logic seems to make sense for soldiers after a war. But does it apply to civilian government workers too? As it turns out, the exact same principles are at play. Whenever there's talk of trimming the number of government office holders, you always hear the same argument. Cutting these jobs is deflationary. It'll hurt the local coffee shops and landlords. It sounds just like the fear we had about the soldiers, doesn't it? And that's because it's the exact same fallacy, just in a different uniform. We only see the bureaucrat who lost their job. We see the specific local businesses they no longer go to. But we forget about the taxpayers all over the country who now have more money in their pockets. And we totally forget about the other shopkeepers in other towns who are gaining all that new business instead. This really gets to the heart of the matter. What kind of employment actually creates wealth for a society? It's all about this fundamental shift from being supported by the economy to actively supporting it. And here's the real kicker. Getting rid of superfluous, and not just means unnecessary government positions, doesn't just shuffle money around. It makes the country as a whole significantly better off. It's a net positive for everyone. The reason is simple, but it's also pretty profound. To earn a living in the private sector, these folks now have to produce something of value that other people are willing to pay for. They shift from being, well, a drain on the tax base to becoming a productive member of the economy. The author of our source text makes a really sharp, provocative point here. They say that defending a useless job just because of its purchasing power is, well, fantastic, as in unbelievable. It's like arguing that a thief is good for the economy because, hey, at least he spends the money he steals. Let's just break that down. When a thief robs you, you get nothing in return. Your purchasing power goes down by the exact amount his goes up. For the economy as a whole, it's a wash. The argument is that when taxes support a truly needless bureaucrat, someone not providing a real service, the economic effect is identical. Money is just transferred, but no new value is created. Now, this is an absolutely critical point, so let's be super clear. This logic does not apply to necessary public servants. We're talking about police, firefighters, judges, legislators, people who perform essential, productive services. They make it possible for private industry to function in the first place. Their justification is the utility of what they do, not just the fact that they have a paycheck to spend. So, this all leads to a really practical question, right? How do we know when a government job has become superfluous and isn't really serving a purpose anymore? Well, the author offers a really simple test. When the only argument left for keeping a government position is to retain purchasing power, that's a giant red flag. It's a sign that the position itself may no longer be necessary for society. So here's the takeaway. The next time you hear a debate about creating or cutting jobs, ask yourself, what is the unseen side of this story? Who's paying for this, and what else could that money be doing? It's by looking for the unseen that we start to see the whole economic picture. Thanks for joining me.